This Republican Congressman Jason Chaffetz of Utah is joining us. He's chairman of the House Oversight Committee. Mr. Chairman, thanks for joining us.
Hi, Wolf.
I want to get to a lot of issues in a moment, but I want to get to the breaking news first. You heard Senator Blumenthal say the Supreme Court nominee Neil Gorsuch used the words demoralizing and disheartening to describe President Trump's attacks on the judiciary. Administration official confirms he did, in fact, use those words. Do you agree with those words?
Look, it sounds like Neil Gorsuch might be a darn good judge. He's not going to be politically swayed on one side of the aisle. He's going to call it as he sees it, and that's exactly why so many of us like the judge. In general, I think it's ill-advised to criticize a judge. You may criticize the ruling, you may criticize the questions that be asked, but to criticize somebody personally like that, I don't like to see that in any realm, and certainly not against the judge.
The president's got a history, though, of doing that. You're on the Judiciary Committee, Mr. Chairman. How concerning is it to you that President Trump called the overall appeals court hearing that was on last night for an hour? He said it was disgraceful. Does that trouble you? This is an attack on the judiciary system, if you will.
No, I look, the president is very opinionated. He has a right to his opinion. Members of Congress routinely weigh in with their opinion about how the court proceeding is happening. And certainly we've seen things that have been beyond pale that we just think are absolutely wrong. So I'm not going to criticize the president for his comments about that proceeding. I thought there were a lot of questions that those judges asked which were well outside the scope of what the hearing should be. It was about presidential power, the president's ability to enforce the law and to protect this nation. And some of the questions that those judges asked really have you scratching your head thinking, what are they're spending valuable time asking the attorneys questions, and they were totally off topic.
Do you think it's okay for the president to call a federal judge who was nominated by President Bush, who was approved unanimously, a so-called judge?
He's a real judge, in my opinion. The president's entitled to his opinion. I have mine as well, but yeah, he's a real judge, and he made a real opinion.
Let's turn to some of the other opinions from the president today. He's tweeting about his daughter's business, saying it's been treated unfairly. Is it appropriate, do you believe, is it ethical, and you oversee the executive branch of the government, for the president to be commenting about his daughter's business like this?
No, I think most people can relate to the fact that a father, a doting father with very successful children, is going to look after those children, and you know, if he sees something going wrong, he's going to call it out. I think that's what was appealing to so many people about Donald Trump. I don't pay much attention to it. You know, every once in a while, my wife is watching entertainment television and something like that will come up, but I don't think it rises to the standard that Congress or CNN or somebody thinks that this is a big deal. But that's my opinion.
But you know, he's not just the father. He's also the president of the United States, and he's attacking a major American business, the Nordstrom department store chain, for dropping his daughter's business line, if you will, the attire. Is that appropriate, really, for a president to be doing that?
I think the president has the right to weigh in on his opinion on things, and especially as it relates to his children. I think you have other elected officials at every level that weigh in on their opinion about the Super Bowl and which teams they support, which stores they like, which hamburgers they like. I tweet a lot about cheeseburgers. I've never had anybody complain about that, and if he's complaining about Nordstrom, I think it was politically motivated. It looks to me like Nordstrom was politically motivated.
Why do you say that? They say it was strictly a business decision, and it was done in early January for business reasons.
Well, so be it. I've spent more time talking about this than we should even be talking about it. All the things facing this nation, this is not in the top 757 of the most important things out there, Wolf. It's really not.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about some other issues, and I think it's an important issue. The whole notion right now of your role as the chairman of the Oversight Committee. You're seeking documents about management of various executive branch issues. The Democrats on your committee, they want to take a look at the Trump International Hotel here in D.C. It occupies a government-owned building. You've also said you're curious about that? Is it possible that President Trump is profiting off the presidency? And is that an issue that your committee should be looking into?
I am curious about the lease that seems to be properly executed when it was. It's interesting what the GSA, who administers these contracts, I gave a letter to the Democrats earlier, another letter asking the GSA what is their opinion of this. It'll take some time for them to respond. They did give us the fully unredacted contract. It was something I asked for back in December, but we now have that. So I think that is something that we should look at, and I have been doing that.
So do you suspect he's in violation of the terms of that GSA lease that specifically says the lease holder cannot be a federal elected official?
Well, what's interesting is if you have somebody who's both the tenant and the landlord, the question for the GSA is how do they rectify it? Maybe the answer is nothing. Maybe they just need to have some simple paperwork in place. I don't know. That's why I'm curious as to what the GSA is going to say about this. And we started that process even before the president was sworn in.
Don't the profits from the hotel, though, still go eventually to Donald Trump? And isn't that potentially a conflict of interest?
Well, if you recall, Wolf, Section 208 of the Criminal Code, the president is exempt from conflicts of interest. And so it's somewhat of a non-issue because he's exempt from these types of things. He did lay out a process where he was going to wall that off what the Trump operations were doing versus what he's doing as president. But certainly the precedent is such that Congress of past has always come to the conclusion that the president should be exempt from these things, and they would know that they would have some degree of conflict.
Here's the question, Congressman, and I know you're going to be looking into this. Has he satisfied that commitment that he's made to sort of lock himself off? And what about the emolument clause of the U.S. Constitution?
Well, there's a lawsuit that's out there. It'll be interesting to see what happens with that. But again, I know it's surprising and frustrating to Democrats, but the president is exempt from these conflicts of interest. So
he's not exempt from the emoluments clause. He's not exempt from the emoluments clause of the Constitution, is he?
He's required by law to do a financial disclosure, which by all accounts he has done and is complete, and I've never heard anybody complain specifically about that. He is, I think he should have introduced and made his tax returns available. He hasn't done that, but that's optional. And I am curious about this contract here, but I'm not about, as I've said before, I'm not going to go on this fishing expedition that the Democrats want us to go on to. I think the public understood when they elected Donald Trump overwhelmingly that he had vast interests in a variety of businesses all around the globe. That is not breaking news. Everybody knew that when they voted for him. That was out there clearly. What he's required to do by law, as best I can tell, he has complied with in his financial disclosures.
Yeah, but I guess the whole issue, we all knew about his business and all of that, what he disclosed, what he didn't disclose, tax returns, he didn't disclose them. He had that explanation that he was under audit, he wasn't going to release them. But there's so many people who are asking, why doesn't it concern the chairman? I assume it does concern you. You're the chairman of this oversight committee that's looking at the executive branch of the U.S. government, that the president of the United States potentially could be in violation of the United States Constitution.
I just don't see it like that, Wolf. I just don't. I've looked at this. I've had people pepper me with information.
Do you want to have hearings? Should you have hearings on it?
No, look, I never did this type of investigation on Barack Obama. I never did this on Hillary Clinton. And unless there's some real cause to do it, I don't intend to do it on Donald Trump. There is nothing to suggest that he is profiteering in an unordinary way from the fact that he's the president of the United States. He